And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Palm Springs Unified School District regular board meeting of the Board of Education. It is August 24th, 2021. All right, so let's get started with the roll call and bringing the meeting to order.
President Wood?
Here.
Clerk Durrell?
Here.
Member Cornett?
Here.
Member Espericueta?
Here.
And Member Girardi?
Here.
Thank you. And let's also start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if we would, and Member Girardi is going to lead us.
Would you please stand if you can? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we have the mission statement, and Board Member Cornett is going to read that for us.
All members of Palm Springs Unified School District are united in our commitment to equity. We create deep, meaningful learning opportunities, build professionalism, and engage parents and community to ensure success for all students. All students graduate with the skills, capacities, and confidence needed to succeed in a rapidly changing world.
Thank you. All right, item number 6, report of closed session items. Clerk Jarrell, are there any to report?
There are none to report.
Great, thank you. And now the approval of the agenda, item 7. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
I make the motion to approve.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Passes. All right, item 8, public comments. All comments are to be directed to the board, be under 3 minutes, and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during public comments. Board members do not respond during these comments. So first, email comments. Clerk Jarrell, have we received any email comments?
We have received 10 email comments, which have been distributed to the Board of Education electronically earlier today. We will be including this as part of the record. There are 3 public comments that have been requested specifically to be read. And I'll read those right now, okay? So, comment number 1, Christian Donovan. As a parent with children enrolled in a PSUSD school, I wish to offer my gratitude for the district's appreciation of the science behind masks in an effort to protect students and staff from the spread of COVID. Following the science during a global pandemic is one of the most logical steps we as a society can take to protect one another. The burden is on all of us to watch out for what is better for others, including those under 12 who are not yet able to receive a vaccination and those with weakened or compromised immune systems. Concern for others is a sign of kindness and compassion, so it's a welcome trait to instill in students at PSUSD. As we continue to encourage and build on each other up during these hard times, it's comforting to know that PSUSD is doing their part. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Comment number 2 from Angela Garby or Garb. Dear board members, currently our SDC, special day class, and moderate severe students across the district have no options for distance learning. Parents were told there would be options for them and are getting turned away from the DLA because they do not have the skills to be successful in that program. So DLA is Desert Learning Academy. As great as the DLA program is, they simply cannot meet the needs of our students who struggle with reading, writing, and math. These are some of our most vulnerable students, and they deserve an option for distance learning, just as much as their non-disabled peers. Thank you for considering the needs of all of our students. And the last comment, number 3, that was requested to be read aloud from Stacy Brennan. PSUSD has a huge number of parents wanting online or distance learning at this time. Desert Learning Academy is receiving a high number of transfer requests from students, families enrolled at traditional sites. A significant number of these requests are for students identified with special needs. The district has made virtual online program options available, but not for the wide variety of programs that we have for students with special needs. Students placed in moderate to severe special education settings are without a virtual program option available. Continuing, currently the only options available are the virtual learning for the 1st through 5th grade with daily general education instruction with teachers, 5 classes, 1 per grade level. All are maxed out at 31 students. DLA hybrid, K-12, which can be done in person or virtually, or independent study through DLA K-12, all remote. These are all appropriate for students at or near grade level, functioning. In conclusion, every student at every ability level should be provided with an appropriate education at this time. Virtual learning is possible for students with moderate to severe disabilities, as was shown by distance learning programs and the academic successes of students in our special day classes and functional life skills classes for the last year and a half. The district should design a virtual learning model accessible to all students.
Thank you. Okay, next, do we have any telephonic comments?
We do not have any telephonic comments today.
Great, thank you. And so now we're going to go to the members of the public. Just as a quick reminder, if you wish to speak tonight, you need to complete one of the yellow cards. So we have quite a few, so you have time if you'd like to complete one, and then make sure to get it over to Ms. Berrigan, and she'll make sure we get it in order. Okay, so let's start in order. First is Veronica Munoz.
Ma'am?
And you can use the podium here. And they are timed at 3 minutes,
Right.
so, and you'll get a warning at 1 minute to the end.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, board members. My name is Veronica Munoz. I am an educator as well as an alumni of PSUSD. I'm also constituent of Trustee Area 5. I'm here to ask you, the board, to boldly divest from tentative deals with law enforcement. Recently, we heard from the California Department of Education that they reiterated their ruling that using money intended for English learners, low-income, foster youth, and homeless youth cannot be spent on law enforcement and security. This was a ruling that has been reiterated. And despite this, $400,000 were still approved on the LCAP specifically for SROs. This is illegal. Myself, African American Parent Advisory Committee, and more community members have attended these LCAP forums and meetings with Mr. Smart to address this. So please intervene and revise this. Also, 15 students participated in the thought exchange survey regarding the SROs, only 15 out of 20-some thousand. When a recent Rancho Mirage High School graduate tried to share her peers' traumatizing experiences with Mr. Smart regarding a wrong accusation, he interrupted her before she could finish to defend the rights of the SRO's actions rather than the rights of the student who was wrongly accused and traumatized. This is not okay. Students are the largest stakeholder affected by SROs, and their voices are largely missing from this conversation. Last one is personal. PSUSD needs systemic change when it comes to behavior intervention. We need comprehensive training in restorative justice immediately and a culture of restorative practices from top to bottom. I once had to call a security officer on a child, an elementary child, because all other interventions had failed him. This security officer threw him against the wall, threatened him with handcuffs. I, along with 4 other adults, had a part in traumatizing this child, so I vowed to myself never to be a part of traumatizing a student I chose to serve. I took it upon myself to learn and pay to learn about restorative justice and how to use restorative practices so I never have to threaten a student with exclusion or punitive discipline.
Ms. Munoz, you have 1 minute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, we consistently see high rates of suspensions among our minority high schoolers. This is a problem within the system of behavior intervention. We keep hiring individuals to participate in our system when it's not as effective as it should be. Therefore, I again repeat, we need an overhaul of a behavior system to have a culture and ability to use restorative justice and restorative practices. Using SROs as any part of intervention is very outdated with the research. We know better, so it's time to do better for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. Okay, next we have Miss Edith Duran.
Good afternoon, board members and everybody in attendance. My name is Edith Duran. I was here at the last board meeting speaking on the quiet decision that was made to remove the RSOs from campuses. This was done without public or parent awareness, and I am here for every child, not just for my own, but for answers for parents and not just for myself. Just 3 days after my appearance here, there was another shooting down in the north end of Palm Springs, and I'm sorry, which included 2 people, one of which was a minor. It's hard to say if he was part of the district or not, but this decision was irresponsible because it's ignorant not to think that this cannot spill into our schools. It plays hand in hand. Violence in the streets can spill into the schools and vice versa. They can carry that off to schools. Now, it is very unfair to put all the responsibility on the RSOs. I am aware of that, so it'd be unfair to say it relies all on them. But they are a very key part of making the environment a safe environment, mentally and physically, to be the first responders if something does happen on school sites. There will always be 2 sides of the story. There will always be a public opinion. Okay, it's very apparent to what's going on right now with the mask mandates. I mean, there's so many things going on. Everybody has their own opinion. Okay, but one thing that should not be left for public opinion is the safety of our children. Okay, RSOs are very important. Now, the Justice Department, the U.S. Justice Department does recognize these officers as sworn officers to mitigate any possible opportunities for criminals or criminal activity to happen on site.
Excuse me, Ms. Duran, you have 1 minute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And at this point, this decision is impeding in their opportunity to prevent or have any part in preventing any crime on school sites. There was a poll. I cannot give you the resource right now because I was not able to find it. It was just a online poll, but 80% of parents across the nation did support resource officers on duty. And there will always be 2 sides of the story, like I said, but safety of our children should never be left up to the point of view of the public. That's a risk that I'm not willing to take for my children, and this decision, it was very clear that it was decided that the risk outweighed protecting the kids on site. So I did get a little glimmer of hope. I did see the PowerPoint before
Ms.
I
Duran,
started.
you'll have to
Before I started speaking, and I'm hoping that what I read is accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. Okay, next from Palm Springs, Ms. Karen Johnson.
I'm Karen Johnson, President of Palm Springs Teachers Association. I don't know if you guys got the memo, but that first week of school was really hot. And it's been hot out the last couple weeks, and we still have schools that are moving into inclement weather even as of last week, where lunches are being cut short and recesses are being cut short. And I know we can come up with a plan where we can still let kids play and have their free time during the course of a day, and we can still let people have their full lunches during the course of the day. We just need to put our heads together and work on this so we can maybe mitigate this before it's hot again next spring. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Mr. Dieter Crawford.
Good evening, board and staff. I want to speak on item 11F, the school resource officer. My name's Dieter Crawford. I'm a board member with the Desert Highland Gateway Health and Wellness Committee, and I'm also on the African American Parent Advisory Council. I'm a product of the Palm Springs Unified School District, went to school in the district, kindergarten through 12th grade. I've got a 4-year-old son that'll be in the district soon. I currently work as a clinical community health worker with Savas Health, so my background is in public health and community health. I just want to say I'm not in favor of the SROs on campus. We have no data or stats to support them on our campuses. And the officers sometimes take actions on school level violation that break rules but aren't criminal. We know the school to prison pipeline is real. This is something we've been working on for a while now. In 2017, we did a youth risk behavior survey with Loma Linda University Health and the Palm Springs High School Palm Academy of Learning Medicine. And the purpose was to study and identify and better understand risk associated with the school to prison pipeline and Desert Highland Community High School youth. And one of the things that stood out in the survey was trust of police. So white youth, 78% of white youth trust the police, while 27% of Hispanic youth and 37% of Desert Highland youth trust the police. So we know our colored youth don't trust the police. I encourage you guys to take a look at that survey. I've presented it here before to the board, also emailed it over again today, so I hope you all got it. I'd like to see us take the lead and follow the lead of Coachella Valley Unified School District, who cut the SRO program in the 2018-2019 school year. And they haven't saw a major jump in crime on their campuses.
Excuse me, Mr. Crawford, 1 minute.
And I'd like to see us invest in restorative justice programs, such as the ones that we're seeing all over the country. Coachella Valley Unified also has some excellent restorative justice programs that they've created along with Alianza. And restorative justice is an alternative discipline approach in schools that reduce suspensions and expulsions while fostering safe and welcoming school environments for students and teachers. So like I said, we'd like to see some restorative justice programs implemented up here and maybe invest in those, and no SROs on our campus. Once again, my name's Dieter Crawford. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Charlie Irwin.
Hello, board and members and people out here in attendance. My name is Charlie Irwin. I'm a parent of 2 boys here in the Palm Springs Unified School District, also a board member of the African American Parent Advisory. I would like to say, first and foremost, I'm not against law enforcement. I am against law enforcement on our campuses. Palm Springs Unified School District has gave our local law enforcement years of service in the amounts of over $600,000 for 4 police officers. We have no data, no stats to support them being on the campus. Palm Springs Unified School District Director of Security has reported that our school district has used the SROs in punitive ways, abusing the services. After looking over the 5-page report, I'm not impressed with the reasoning for bringing SROs back on our campus. Did we have a major change that created a panic to create a rush to this decision? We need more time and a better presentation. Did Palm Springs Unified School District have a murder on campus? Did we have a situation where our securities couldn't handle it? I went and did a little research, and I would like to ask you guys a couple questions. Has Palm Springs Unified School District ever had a situation on campus that our officers were needed? Has Palm Springs Unified School District had a mass shooting in the last 20 years? Has Riverside County had a mass shooting in the last 20 years? The answer to that question is no. Palm Springs Unified School District is a safe campus, no different from any other campus. We have 45 security guards on our campus. That's enough. We don't need an extra 4 police officers on campus. And lastly, why would we cut anything that has to do with our COVID-19 protocol? Every penny is needed and then some. We are dealing with a violent virus that has taken the lives of thousands of people in the last few years. I have been in contact with parents on a regular basis.
Excuse me, sir, 1 minute, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wondering why our children are in classrooms with over 40 students. They are simply worried to death about this virus, including our teachers. The last thing we need is a budget cut for a program that has no documentation and that has showed not to be helpful for any of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next from Palm Springs, Mr. Raphael Cervantes.
Good evening, board. My name is Raphael Cervantes. I'm a graduate of Palm Springs High School, 1997. My wife was supposed to be here. She had notes, but she couldn't make it. She wasn't feeling well, so I'm going to do my best, speak from the heart. I do believe that police are needed at the school. When they were on our campus, they gave a level of security. I wasn't the greatest student, but I knew not to handle my business at school. We knew to handle it out of school. An example is that my daughter was physically attacked in high school last week. She was attacked by a girl that was a gang affiliated. My daughter made a complaint at 9:30 in the morning. The school failed to give that complaint to the girl. They said they could not find the girl. And at 2 p.m., she went to the bathroom to use the bathroom, saw the girl, and figured they had served the girl with a no-contact order. The door was kicked down in the bathroom stall, and she was just basically attacked. They videotaped it, and she was beat up. Now, had there been police there, had they prevented it? Maybe not, I don't know. But they definitely would have prevented the situation that happened outside the school when the daughter and the mother came outside, and an altercation ensued, and they wanted to fight my wife. Look, I wasn't the best person. I know Mr. Irving and Mr. Crawford. And we went to school together, but police, they didn't get involved, but I knew as a student not to handle things at school. They just added security. They didn't get involved in things. I never saw them throw down students. As a person that was not the best student and was always involved in stuff, I knew that school was not the place to handle stuff because there's a police there. Because police, I don't like police. I just don't, because I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get handcuffed. I don't want to go to jail. So I know to go to school, and that's what I do. So that's why I believe this police officers are needed there. They have a little level of security. They were friendly. They knew the students, and just them being there makes me not want to handle business at school. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Ms. Stephanie Avant.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Avant, and I have 3 kids in your district. And I'm also a liaison for Bella Vista. I want to address you guys because I also have 1 kid that's in an autism program at Bella Vista. I'm also being bullied and pressured by the district to be forced against my own civil right to send my child, who also has a doctor's note and has been told to the district and served that it is best for him to remain on distance learning. And that has not been a platform that has been presented. Instead, I have been threatened and bullied by district staff that if I don't send him, that I will be arrested or I will be charged with negating and neglecting my kids' needs of an education. Well, I come to you to tell you that we knew that this pandemic wasn't over before summer. We knew of Delta before then, and Plan A, B, or C were not implemented. Parents are being forced against their will to either send their kids or keep them home. I have kept all 3 of my children home. I have spoke with the superintendent. I have spoke with special services. I have worked within your system. The negligence, the negativity, the disrespect, the corporate bullying has occurred. And I am a mom here to work with the system, work with you guys, even through this pandemic. I'm here basically crying out to you guys. I'm not the only mom going through this, but day in and day out, I have all 3 of my kids sitting at attention, doing their work with what is prevented. No safe measures at the schools. Half of the schools don't have toilet paper, half of the schools don't have toilet liners, half of them don't even have working air conditioners. If you couldn't protect our kids before a pandemic, how are we to send our kids during a pandemic and be protected? Number 1 on that is my kids also doing DLA. DLA is a joke. It is a joke. The platform of Edgenuity works.
Pardon me.
Thank you.
You have 1 minute.
But
Thank you, Ms. Avant.
there is over 200 kids on the Zoom meetings for the classrooms. The teachers are not actual teachers. Miss Maria is speaking in Spanish for 52 minutes, and 1 minute questioning my daughter in an attitude way, which is bullying from her. Why don't you speak Spanish? I said, was my kid put into an actual Spanish-speaking English class on accident? They said, no, most of our students are Spanish speakers. Just go ahead and work on the programs. So there's no education being provided to my children, except for the platforms in the Chromebooks. I'm asking for your guys' help and to show parents grace during this pandemic and respect our civil rights of advocating for what's best for our kids. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we go on to board member comments, I just want to say one thing. Sometimes after the public comments, we see people get up and leave. And sometimes during the board member comments and during the superintendent's comments, we're able to provide a little bit more information than you maybe already have. So if you don't mind just sticking around for a few more minutes, you already made the drive over, you might get more information that you're looking for. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board for board comments.
I had a quick comments only. As before this meeting, we received a lot of public comments in different ways by email, and have conversations face to face with residents, and we hear that today comments in person, and I appreciate that because it feels comfortable to express your concerns. We are listening to you. Sometimes probably we need time to figure out what can we do, because it's sometimes a different situation, it's different point of view. But we are here to do our best to represent you, and I appreciate that, that we have more public involvement, and that may our job more productive for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
I'd just like to echo what Sergio said. I know it's really hard to come here and talk before the board. It's not always so easy, and we do really appreciate you coming here and letting us know what your concerns are. And I'd like to thank you all for coming here. We are trying to do our very best of getting our kids back into school, and we really appreciate all of our staff and our community members. Our students seem to be overjoyed about being back in school for the majority, and we really appreciate our parents also. So I really would like to thank them and trying in getting our schools back up and running in person. It's not the easiest, and we're all here trying to do our very best for our students and our staff. So thank you to the people who came tonight and spoke to us in person, and also the people that sent in comments through email.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Please.
Just to echo what my colleague said, thank you all for coming out and addressing the board. We value everybody's perspective and your comments. We take them seriously. As one speaker said, there's two sides to every story. I think some of these stories have 8 sides or 10 sides. They're very, very complicated sometimes. There's a lot of elements to consider. And I assure you this board takes that very seriously. I also want to congratulate Karen Orozco. Karen was a 2021 graduate from Desert Hot Springs High School, and she received the Carl's Junior Scholarship from the Carl N. and Margaret Karcher Foundation, $20,000 scholarship to attend UC Irvine, so well done to her. I also want to congratulate our Musical Theater University. They received a grant from the Berger Foundation. If you guys are not familiar with MTU, they put on wonderful productions, live performances, musical productions, plays. They're very, very talented. And then also, I'd just like to remind our teachers that if you're interested in a classroom grant from our foundation, that closes at the end of the month. So I encourage you, get your application in if you're interested in a classroom grant. Thank you very much.
It's so good to see you all, and we want you to keep coming back and communicating with us in person through emails, calls, any way that makes you comfortable. We need to work together, and in education, especially in learning the new standards, Common Core, there are the 4 C's: collaboration, cooperation, critical strategic thinking, and creativity. And I think we should add passion, because all of you come to this venue and to this district and to our place right here to do what's right for kids. And you're all so passionate, and we need to hear from you, and we appreciate whatever opinion you have, and we like to know what's your thinking. So with that, I'll move on to our Junior Black Achievers, with Joy Cox from Palm Springs High School at the lead, Alicia Everett at Desert Hot Springs High School, Vera Johnson from LUSD, Don Cox. What a great opportunity for young men and women to be in this special club or organization, and they focus on academic achievement. They foster interest in learning. They cover Black history, and they have associates with Black mentors and speakers. And this is just beyond belief that it's grown over 30 members. So I appreciate all of the people that have started this group, and I hope we can continue at each school across the district and expand. There was just one last comment about our SRO work, and that is something that is going to take some thinking, collaboration, and some hard work on many people's parts, not just the district, all of the community members, all of you, all of the board, the district organization. So I think Mr. Girardi said it's not simple sometimes. It's very complicated. And we appreciate your patience in working with us and helping us make meaningful decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so just a couple of things. First of all, I think that it's first worth noting that the tone of our board meetings is sometimes a little bit different than other things you may see or hear or read about. We have a very respectful group of parents and community members who join us, and I want to say thank you for all of you, because when you come and you bring your opinions and when you make your comments, they're always done in a very respectful way, and I do really want to acknowledge that and be thankful for it and grateful for it. And vice versa. I think that you should always also be treated respectfully. Your opinions are valued and they matter. And so one of the things that I think is a way of acknowledging that respect is giving you as much information as we possibly can. And the SRO program is clearly something that's on all of your minds, or majority of your minds tonight. We're going to have a presentation in a little bit, and I know that our superintendent is going to make comments about the SRO program, but I just wanted to acknowledge a couple of things to try to set the record straight a little bit. So in 2019, we started the search for a director of security. We did it because we had concerns about security here. Part of it was the physical security of our campuses. Part of it was just about making sure we were updated and upgraded. And part of it was the SRO program. And so we hired somebody who started the week before the pandemic, Levon? The week before. Moved his family here from across the country. And we began that work. That work included not just a review of the physical security, as I said, of the campuses, but also the SRO program. Obviously, when the pandemic hit and when we closed our campuses 2 weeks later, that changed. He wasn't able to go and see what was going on in our campuses and things like that. So we have been trying to make progress during this period of time, but part of that progress is going to require some of the things that the superintendent is going to talk about during his presentation, and I'll leave that for then. But I wanted to make sure that people understood that everything from how we fund it, because I know that I heard some concern about that tonight, to what they are responsible for doing and what they are not responsible for doing, are all things that have been under review for now 18 months. And we are taking the time to make sure that as we go through that review and as we go through that with a fine-tooth comb, we are aligning it with national standards. We are making sure that everything that we do is something that has been looked at, reviewed, recommended, studied over and over. And you can look at both Mr. Smart's presentation from a few board meetings ago to more of what you'll hear again tonight later. But I wanted to make sure that nobody left the room before understanding that this has been an ongoing process for a very long time. We literally agree with both sides of what you have to say. Is it funded properly, right? Are they doing the right thing? How do we make sure that the campuses are secured while also making sure that our students are safe and are treated respectfully, that they are not fearing people, that what they are doing is being adequately supervised during the day, right? And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sweezy to make his superintendent comments. But if you have more interest in this area, I ask you to please stay for the presentation. It's just a few items down. Okay? Thank you. Dr. Sweezy.
Thank you, President Wood. I couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate those comments. And again, we will be addressing the SRO question in just a few items on the agenda. So for my superintendent's report, I would like to share some of the things that have been happening around the schools the last couple of weeks. We got off to a very great start. Thousands and thousands of students and thousands of employees back at work. All very positive. We've been having our back to school nights, and those have taken place at all of our elementary schools and most of our high schools. In fact, there's one going on right now at Cathedral City High School, and those have gone extremely well. So we've had parents coming and visiting the schools and meeting the teachers, and that's been very positive, and we conduct that in a very safe way because, of course, that is one of our big priorities. One of the other items I wanted to mention this evening is like many other school districts and many other businesses right now in California and the United States, we have several unfilled positions. So we are out looking for people who want to work for this incredible district. You've heard me say that many times. This is an amazing district full of incredible people. And we would love any one of you or your friends or your community members who would like to join us at the district to please look into the positions that we have available. We have classroom assistant positions available, playground supervision positions, teaching positions, and really all across the gamut. Like many school districts, we are definitely looking for some employees to join us. As well, that goes for substitute teachers. And so if anyone is interested in being a substitute teacher or knows somebody who would like to, please reach out to our Human Resources Department. We'd love to have you learn more about the Palm Springs team. I did want to talk a little bit about being up and running and in person and contact tracing, and I know that was mentioned earlier. And so part of our process in the district is when we do have a positive COVID case, and we have, and many districts will and have as well, we go into a process of contact tracing. The first and most important thing is that we make sure that it is an actual verified case and not a student with the sniffles who we need to send home, but we're talking about students where we know, or staff members where we do know that they do have the COVID-19 virus. When that happens, we start this contact tracing process. Contact tracing means that we take a very careful look at everyone who came in contact with that person and meets the scientific and medical definition of an exposure. And so just walking past someone who has the virus isn't considered an exposure. Having seen somebody a few days ago before they were sick doesn't constitute an exposure. And so our medical professionals in the district work very hard to determine every student and staff member that may be considered a direct exposure. When that happens, then those staff members or students and families are notified immediately. You're notified of the potential exposure, and we give you directions and assistance and provide the opportunity to be tested and explain the process of quarantining. Every potential exposure has a different type of quarantine that might be associated with it. So you probably have seen on the website we have a dashboard that keeps track of the number of active cases in students and staff. It's important to note that those are active cases, so when someone no longer is considered an active case and they've passed their quarantine and they return back to school or back to work, their number is removed from that active case. So it's not a number that you should see just going up every day. It will fluctuate up and it will fluctuate down, and of course ultimately we hope that it trends completely down. I did want to mention that because I saw a local news story of a parent who was concerned because our dashboard numbers didn't match what the parent believed had happened at the school. So I wanted to take this opportunity to explain that. I also have been using my superintendent's report to provide a broader County of Riverside update. And so I'd like to start by providing a quick update from the state. The California Department of Public Health issued a letter to all school districts yesterday, really reiterating the indoor masking requirement in school settings for all grades K through 12. And so it makes it very clear that districts like Palm Springs, who's working so hard to follow that safety of the mask mandate, this is a letter from the California Department of Health that really reinforces that. Even with these protections across our county, we are seeing an increase in Riverside County in positivity and case rates. So when I last reported to you at the board meeting on August 10th, the rate was 25.2 out of 100,000, and today it is 35.2. So that is still increasing in the county. Our cases here in Palm Springs, while we would prefer to have no positive cases, of course, with anyone associated with the district, our cases in Palm Springs really have remained low as a percentage of the total number of students that we had returned to classes just a few weeks ago. So just want to reiterate, we are constantly working with providers to offer COVID-19 vaccination clinics to everyone age 12 and older who is eligible. And we also make testing available to all employees and all students. And if you are a family or a parent of a student in our district and you have a specific concern, please contact your school's healthcare professional, and we can make arrangements for you to be tested as well. So we do want to work hard to continue to make that available for everyone. So again, as I said, I'll talk about SROs in just a few minutes, and so I appreciate all of the public who is here tonight to speak on that issue and share your perspective with the board. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, President Wood.
Sorry. Thank you. All right. So now we're up to 11A, board action items. Approval of monitoring report governing policy OE10, operational expectations, instructional programs, OE10. And I believe Dr. Kovach is going to present this item for us.
Thank you, Board President Wood.
Thank you.
Well, we began a new process in regards to our monitoring reports this year, and at the August 10th board meeting, we had a study session where I shared information about our instructional program. And during that board study session, I reviewed the 14 assurances that are under our instructional program, OE10, and I also shared how we interpret those assurances and our evidence of compliance. So now today, I come to the board and ask for approval for our operating report and that we are in compliance with our instructional program. And before I do that, though, I want to highlight a couple of areas that we are so very proud of. We are very proud of everything that we do here in our district, but there's one or two areas I really would like to highlight in regards to the classes and programs that are offered for our students. And one of those is our PSUSD academies. And I want to just take a moment to share where the academies and where they are at our high schools. We have at Desert Hot Springs High School our Public Service Academy, a Renewable Energy Academy, and an Academy for Careers and Education. At Palm Springs High School, we have our Academy for Learning Medicine, PALM. We have Money, Marketing, and Management, and we have our Performing Arts Academy. At Cathedral City High School, we have our Health and Environmental Academy of Learning and our Digital Arts and Technology Academy. And at Rancho Mirage High School, we have our Culinary Arts Academy. And all of our comprehensive high schools have AVID that's offered for our students. One of the other areas that I want to highlight are those innovative programs, and we discussed that at our last board meeting or at the study session. And even due to, with the pandemic and the school closure last year, it could have been a struggle, but I'm so proud that we really are still highlighting those innovative programs. And one of those is our dual language immersion program. We also have technology one-to-one devices, of course, computer science, esports at high school and middle school, drone racing, robotics, computer science, robotics at elementary as well, and of course we have our structured recess program. So I just want to highlight a few things that we're very proud of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, can we get a motion to approve the monitoring report?
Move for approval.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. All right, 11B, adoption of resolution number 2021-2022-68, finding the modernization of Cathedral City High School exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and approving the filing and recordation of a notice of exemption OE 12.13.
I'll move.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 11C, approval to amend professional services agreement with DLR Group for the Palm Springs High School Modernization Project, agreement number C0003261OE 12.7. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. 11D, approval of compromise and release agreement number 2122-0 between parents and district dated August 10, 2021, OE 6.1. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, 11E, approval of certificated and classified employee transactions, OE 4.4, and I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. And any recusals?
Yes, I recuse myself from 11E.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Thank you. All right, 11F. So this is the approval to engage in law enforcement service agreements between Palm Springs Unified School District and the City of Desert Hot Springs, City of Cathedral City, City of Palm Springs, and the County of Riverside for the services of a school resource officer. We're going to have Dr. Sweezy continue the discussion on SROs.
Thank you, President Wood. Just making sure my remote worked. Before I start with the slide portion of the presentation, I do just want to go back to the public comments and then also the comments from the board and from President Wood. When we last discussed this, actually not the last time, but when we first were discussing this around the LCAP budget in June, the board requested that prior to coming into any contracts with the SROs moving forward, that we would have a presentation about Mr. Smart's recommendations and his findings on the SRO system or program in Palm Springs Unified. And as President Wood specified, actually all the way back to July of 2020, we asked Mr. Smart to work on the SRO program around some specific areas. The MOU, the interactions with students, between officers and students, the time on campus, the cost and funding for the program, as well as the training that would be required for the SROs, and that the SRO officer would be part of a comprehensive team of support. And so Mr. Smart has worked with SRO programs in other states as well. And when he looked at our current program in Palm Springs Unified, he found that it wasn't operating the way that it could be. And so, not laying blame about that, but just saying when we look at the national standards for school resource officers, there were a lot of areas that the district could improve in the SRO program. And so his work has really been with our schools and our law enforcement partners to begin to move us towards that new kind of relationship, or again for the wraparound kind of support that we know that our students at all schools need. But let me be very clear. Certainly in Palm Springs Unified, we are motivated to decriminalize responses to student behavior. That goes without saying, and many of our speakers said that. We're educators, and our job is to educate. And so any resource, and that's what the school resource officer would be, is a resource and part of a comprehensive team in this new role for the officers, and also for a new role for our school district and our administrators. And so we all need to work together, and that includes this broad community support to redefine the program. So I wouldn't have brought this forward tonight without the confidence in my recommendation and Mr. Smart's recommendation that what we're moving towards is moving away from focusing on individual specialties, people working in isolation. So an example would be the counselor or the administrator or the school resource officer, a social worker, or a school psychologist. We are moving away from focusing on those as individual specialties and people working in isolation, and instead moving towards a cohesive system of wraparound support. This process of all of us working together to support students in many different ways on our high school campuses will be the vehicle for having all of those specialties working together at our school sites. And I have to say, this is a fundamental culture change for Palm Springs Unified, and we absolutely reject any participation in the concept of a school-to-prison pipeline for PSUSD students. But this plan that has been developed by Mr. Smart, shared with law enforcement, discussed with administrators throughout the district, these school resource officers will be exactly as their name suggests, a resource for students. They're also to help educate and serve students in that wraparound support. Their involvement will support the district goal to helping every single one of our students develop very healthy social and emotional skills. And students are students. They're kids at heart, and so there will probably be a few mistakes by students made along the way. And when those things happen, they're viewed as learning opportunities through that restorative justice philosophy and lens, and not through a process that criminalizes student behavior. I just can't say that enough. This is part of a cohesive team, and the district has really worked in its LCAP to radically fund that wraparound support through our LCAP dollars. So as Mr. Wood mentioned, our timeline around SRO discussion goes all the way back to 2019. And that was really when the board approved the position and knew one of the goals of having Mr. Smart or someone in that position at the time was that we wanted to really overhaul the system in Palm Springs Unified. Mr. Smart, as we stated, started in March of 2020, and then that July 7th of 2020 board presentation and public comments around the SRO, you can see at the bottom of the screen here. Following that meeting, Mr. Smart began his evaluation of our current program covering those areas that I mentioned, the MOUs, the duties and responsibilities, the SRO-specific training, the selection process of officers, time on campus, interaction with students, and the total cost and how that would be paid. So then that presentation was followed up 5 or 6 months later in November. Again, a further step into that conversation. We conducted the thought exchange, and I have heard public comments about the number of participants, and we already have plans to do that kind of surveying in a different way around topics like this in the future. As stated tonight, this was discussed at the LCAP advisory a number of times, discussed with our African American Parent Advisory Group, and also with some community agencies that have sought to reduce the number and reduce the criminalizing of student behavior on school campuses. We then had the budget LCAP presentation in June, where we reduced the LCAP funding for SRO officers and increased the funding for the rest of the wraparound support team. That was approved at the end of June, and then in July, Mr. Smart gave his presentation, and he said, we're just not quite there yet, and we need to get there before we can enter into these contracts. I said at that board meeting that we would be continuously working on that, starting right after that board meeting, and Mr. Smart hadn't stopped, but I would get involved immediately following the July 27th board meeting. And so we've done that. And Mr. Smart and I have met with law enforcement agencies. We've had extensive discussions. We've looked at the MOUs. We've looked at the NASRO, National Association of School Resource Officer training and training availability, and have already started to work towards bringing that training not only for our officers in Palm Springs, but potentially for other districts to join us in that training so that we can, again, be a leader in this kind of wraparound support. We discussed this again on August 10th and then here again on August 24th. So thank you for letting me go through that extensive timeline. I just feel like that's necessary because while I stepped into this process as superintendent, 2/3 of the way through the timeline, this conversation has been happening in Palm Springs Unified, and it's been happening in public for a long time. And so I just wanted to kind of paint the picture to lead us up to where we are today. That additional staff, again, remember, we don't want people working in isolation. We want teams of comprehensive support for our students. And so that team being funded out of the LCAP, these are new expenditures for the LCAP, added 6 social workers, added additional school counselors, all the way down to elementary school. We added additional school counselors. We added a multi-tiered system of support personnel around specific behavior analysts who can help us understand student behavior and the antecedents of their behavior so we can work preventively and proactively and not reactively to student behavior. Our district mental health budget almost doubled. It's near $1 million budget to include much more accessibility of mental health services for our students and families throughout the district, and Care Solace, another program designed specifically to get that mental health support. As part of this comprehensive team, my recommendation is that the board give us authorization to enter into these agreements with the law enforcement agencies. Through this work, Mr. Smart has completed, these are the following areas that I wanted to touch on. The law enforcement agencies will cover, on average, about 35% of the cost of the officer. So it is a shared cost. It's not exactly the same. We're in the position of having to negotiate with 4 separate law enforcement agencies to cover our district. And so each one is a little bit different, but on average, it's at least 30% of the cost of the officer. Our LCAP budget is reduced to $400,000, and it will stay at $400,000. And any additional cost would be paid for out of the general fund or out of our additional funding that we've received, federal funding, to help us address issues of COVID. And I did hear the public comment about that, and we certainly aren't taking money away from something to make this expenditure here. Changes to the MOU include the training. It's specified what kind of training the school resource officer and the schools will receive, because it's not just about the resource officer, it's about all of us working together. It defines their role as part of an overall support team on our school campuses. It focuses on regular collaboration, and it includes the district in the selection process. So we are part of that interviewing and selecting process. We will certainly also have conversations if we feel like we need to remove or change any officer from any one of our schools. We will have ongoing program evaluation of this team, right? Of this whole comprehensive team. And we're going to continue to gather stakeholder input throughout this next year. So again, the thought exchange was one attempt at one time during the pandemic, and we already have some ideas of different ways that we will, again, gather that stakeholder input. Because of these changes, and because we are defining the officers as a piece of a powerful team that will wrap around and support our students, my recommendation is that the board tonight approve us to engage in those service agreements. So if the board were to approve this recommendation this evening, then Mr. Smart and I individually will work with each agency, ensuring that each MOU has the items that we need, whether that's in the MOU, attached as a side letter, whatever types of agreements we need to reach. And then we would move forward with those, again, as part of a consent item in the future. But we wanted to come to you tonight for this upfront approval, which would be my recommendation this evening.
I'm going to open it up for questions. Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Lucia, I had a question. This recommendation is to continue to change the MOU, including this language right training, collaboration, all like that. The board members, the public, will have the opportunity to see that language from the MOU.
So yes, so the MOUs would come forward as like any other contract that comes forward to the board, and so all of that language would be available, and it would be available publicly.
And it's a MOU that had to be approved in another meeting over here?
So yes, the ratification of it would have to be approved. The official MOU would be approved at another meeting, but our intent is for the decision to be made tonight. And so then we would only bring, you would essentially be giving us the authority to bring forward the MOUs in the consent agenda. And so then it wouldn't necessarily be a presentation or a public
because
presentation.
for
those
example,
items.
the last Desert Sands article shared by John was good improvement with the Cathedral City Police Department, because in that article they assigned the commander Julio Luna to be the person that made a statement. Yes. That is good. That is a good change because, for example, to give information for the public, I'm from Dream Homes neighborhood, and Julio Luna, born in that neighborhood, he has been very beneficial for a neighborhood having him in the police Cathedral City, and that can be one of my ideas in the selection process to have, if we reach any agreement, to have police of color in the school. Maybe I have more comments to do, but probably by the end of the presentation, before to vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, sorry, I'm going to try to clarify what you just pointed out. I think what you're trying to say is it would be nice if the officers that are going to be used represent the community.
Yeah, for example, they use a lot the Commander Julio Luna to have meetings with our neighborhood, and has been very good, beneficial for us, because we work hard to change the reputation of the neighborhood, and has been going in good way, and that worked because we feel very comfortable with him.
Yeah, I agree. Now, if we take it sort of the big picture rather than the individual school and individual officer, if we look at sort of big picture, I think one of the ways that the district has tried to address it, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is by having the input into who is hired, which we did not have before, right? That was new to this MOU. We have the ability to control some of that. Whereas before it was just by happenstance that happened, right? And so I think that concern has been heard, and I think that's how we reacted to it and responded to it.
Correct. And in general, if I could also add, Member Espericueta, that so the process has been, we asked Levon to identify what would he recommend as the best MOU for school resource officers. So he did that research, he brought that back to you. It is all of those things I mentioned: training and selection process and member of a team and regular collaboration. And then that MOU, Mr. Smart then and I had a conversation with the law enforcement agencies and talked to them about what's in that MOU. And to us, they all agreed to the changes in that MOU. And I actually skipped over that in my timeline. That just happened August 12th, August 14th. I mean, I believe it's on the timeline. It was after our August 10th board meeting. And so the chiefs, these were the heads of the police departments, that they agreed to the changes in the MOU. So the MOUs that we would be asking for approval meet all of those standards that we've been talking about for this many months. We didn't bring each of those individual ones this evening. We will, as they're completed, we will bring them forward for ratification. But the idea tonight would be, we said we wanted these things. These things define a quality program. We were able to work on that with the MOU, and as a district, we were able to develop a more comprehensive program, and then we're asking you for that approval this evening.
Before we leave this particular topic, if it's okay with you guys, one of the other comments that was made earlier was one around fear of police officers. And I believe that, the comment that was made was that certain parts of our community have more than other parts of our community, that fear and concern. And as we look at this program, and I think that ability to select the right person to be in that school is important, but I don't think that that's how the district, in our small way, and in some cases not so small, have the ability to affect that particular part of the problem, right? This is one of the reasons why we have APAC. It's one of the reasons why we have a new social justice and equity policy. It's one of the reasons why we continue to do outreach to figure out how do we regain trust in a relationship where trust has been lost, not in the last few years, but over decades, if not generations. That's not going to be solved in this program, right? That is a much bigger problem than this program. And it's up to us as members of this community, and quite frankly, if you're in this room right now, you're a leader in this community, because you care, and you care about this topic. I'll share this from a little bit more of a personal perspective. Currently doing a Harvard business class, and in part of that, it talks about our responsibility to be an ally, to fix these problems. These are, again, things that have occurred not just over years, not just over decades, but over generations. And if we don't use our ability to have influence to act as allies, we're never going to solve the problem by looking to one program to do it. It's how we behave daily. It's how we treat those in our community daily. That's where we begin to build the bridge, stone by stone, brick by brick, piece by piece, to regain that trust. Because this is really a trust issue that we're talking about right now. This is not an issue of just, do we or don't we have SROs on our campuses? We need to have the right SROs on our campuses. The right ones mean people who can relate and help build that trust. It also means people who have the skills and trainings to know when they should and when they shouldn't insert themselves, when they should be acting with empathy versus when they should be acting with some authority. And I think that's what, if I've heard you correctly over these last number of months, that's the conversation that you and Mr. Smart were having with our police chiefs, is help us get to that understanding. Help us get to a place where we have those people on our campus with that understanding. Then we start to build the trust back. And I think it's important for our community to hear that we get that part, and that's what we're working towards, and that's why we're doing it in multiple ways, not in one program. Does that make sense? Does that accurately summarize it? At least from that perspective.
Definitely.
I just have two questions.
Sure.
I had seen the whole process, and for some reason I thought there would be differentiated MOUs for each school, but now it looks like there's just one MOU for all of the program.
Each one will end up being different because each agency has different employee unions and different requirements from their attorneys, but the content about what we're saying needs to be in the program will be consistent. But
Okay.
they will be they're with 4 separate agencies, so they will be 4 separate MOUs.
And Dr. Ruiz, maybe public know this, but MOU, how can you explain what it is, a MOU?
It's really the contract. So it's the contract between the school district and the law enforcement agency. So it defines what we're responsible for and what they're responsible for. And we generally will sometimes call them MOU for Memorandum of Understanding, but it really is the contract. Yeah.
And looking into the future, if we take the timeline in that one slide from today and we advance it, and we have key points in our timeline for the future, after these steps, when do we see people in schools or in our educational community in person? I'm just wondering.
Well, that can happen very quickly. That really can happen very quickly, but it will be different in each community and at each school. Again, with tonight's approval, that really would, essentially, it's the board giving me approval in advance for me to enter into the contract between the school district. I assure you, it would have these characteristics, but we have schools and law enforcement agencies that are anxious for that to happen. Like, they would like to be working on this. I will say, if I can just jump back to a slide really quickly. So the 6 social workers that we added to the budget at the end of June, we haven't even been able to get all of them hired by the district. So again, remember, this is building the whole team, and this is one part of the team. But even some of the positions on the slide that I'm showing now, as I mentioned before, we're working hard to fill, to find those social workers, to find those mental health professionals, and those school counselors. But as far as the SROs, that could happen quickly.
Thank you.
I want to add another comment. When I was thinking about the concerns from community or parents about the safety of the children, and I think we don't have to forget to mention the security officer force in the school district, because we have to remember that the school district is not only 4 schools, only for high school. It's 27 schools, more than 20,000 students, around 3,000 employees. And sometimes with the community is in the campus, that amount increase. That means that the security that has been good for many years or for all the time that the school district exists is also thanks to the security officer, that they do their job in different ways, patrolling the schools, looking cameras, permanent security in the campus. Also, all employees get training to know how to react in special situations, the principal, the teachers, the all employees. And I think this is something that all that group is responsible to the safety of the children, and not only 4 officers in the 4 high school. We know that they are dealing with more students with close to the adult age, but the safety is important in the entire school district.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. I think I'm quoting Mr. Smart from one of his presentations when he said, there is no one person who can make a school safe. There's no one. There's no one person. And so it is the whole team. including our district security, campus security officers, including the teachers and classified staff and everyone. Thank you for saying that.
You know, President Wood said it's a matter of building trust, and I agree with that. That's a big part of this. But also, we have a responsibility to use district resources as wisely as we can. Every public agency has limited resources, and we have to use them where they're most effective. And I'll tell you, from my perspective, what I've heard over the last several months, the little bit of research I've done, I don't know if investing in a school resource officer is the best use of district resources. There's not a lot of literature on school resource officers, but some of the research that I've studied, no evidence that they reduce violence on a campus. None at all. And as a matter of fact, they do negatively, in a disproportional way, affect our students of color. That is a fact. That is proven. Yeah. You know, it seems to me like a good school resource officer is like a social worker to a large degree. You know, they mentor, they counsel, they advise. Why not hire a social worker? Why do we need a school resource officer to do that? I'm not sure. However, I do see some benefits of a school resource officer. They're a direct link to emergency services should we need it. Okay? We don't have to go through any other channels. They build relationships with students. And I think that's very important, because if students grow up knowing a police officer, they're going to feel more confident in calling and using police services when they become adults. And I think that's really important. And they also, by having a school resource officer, we reduce the burden on the local law enforcement agencies. And what I mean by that is if we do have a problem, we don't have to take an officer off the street to handle it. We've got somebody already there. So as you can see, I see a lot of different sides to this. I don't think there's any easy answer here. I'm not quite sure this is the best use of our resources. I'm not sure it's not the best use of our resources. So in my opinion, right now, it'd be a little premature to halt the program, particularly with the improvements that they are suggesting. So I'm going to support it tonight. But I want to see some metrics. I want to see some measurements that the school resource officers are effective in helping our children, in helping our students, helping them grow, helping them achieve. I need to see that. And I also need to see, well, let me go back up. And I agree with this because we are reducing our funding. Before, we were paying for an entire officer. What do we use an officer for? 8 months a year, 7.5 months a year? We were paying for 12 months. So since the cities are going to share the cost, I think that's a much more equitable situation for us, and it's a better use of our resources. So we establish metrics, we measure improvements, and we got to do a much better job for community outreach. As the commenter said earlier, we got 15 students comment on this. I mean, we're just not getting out there and getting the public opinion. And so we need to do better to talk to parents, talk to students, talk to community members on how they value school resource officers. That's important to us. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, other questions, comments?
I do have a question. I'm a little concerned about putting it on the consent calendar. 2 things. Every council's got to approve it. They're going to have to approve the MOU. Right. The police chiefs can't approve it. So that every council, that's going to take a couple weeks probably. And then I think for transparency, for full transparency, although we could pull something off the consent calendar, I know that. But I think for full transparency, it should be an action item so everybody can see it up front.
Understood.
I think that's the right idea. I mean, I do think that, you know, you make a very good point. This is clearly enough of a concern. I mean, we haven't had a full house of you know, community members in a long time. It's of such concern that it just makes more sense to do it that way. No problem. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Anything new?
All right, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All All right, next, 12, superintendent's consent items, 12A through 12F. Can I get a motion, please?
Move for approval?
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. And now board consent item in item 13A. Can I get a motion to approve the board minutes for August 10th, 2021?
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Suggestions for future agendas? Anybody? Anybody? No? Okay. Then item 15, setting of the next board meeting, that will be September 14th, 2021. Debrief, comments?
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for really giving a good overview of the SRO program and what we really desire if and when we're going to have them back on campus. So I think a lot of work has been done in that area, and I think the constant looking at it and really deciding, is it working and is it beneficial to our students, is a really good idea. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
I would also like to thank you and give you gratitude for thinking one shoe doesn't fit all, that we are looking for the right person for the right job in the right schools. And each school is different, from elementary to middle to high school, from neighborhood to neighborhood. There are so many differences, and that we will help, and you will help us find the right match to find the people that are going to increase in achievement, involvement, and, like you said, a commitment to helping our kids grow, our students grow. So thank you for keeping that in the back of your head. Thank you.
Anything else? Did you have something?
No.
Okay. For my part, I also want to say thank you. I think that the district, not just the board, but the district in total, has done a very good job of addressing this issue, as I said earlier, from a number of different directions. As I said, APAC is a perfect example. Our social equity and social justice policies are another. Hiring somebody to actually lead that effort. ARC, our anti-racism coalition, we're doing the work. I would say the next place we need to reach is farther and deeper into our community and say, we can use your help, right? You're here, we can use your help. You can join some committees, you can participate in the schools, you can do it in a number of different ways, but we do need our help of our community to start building that bridge. And so, for that, I just say thanks. Anything else on debrief? All right, adjournment. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Pardon me?
I move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we're adjourned. Thank you. What's that?